Hey, peace, guys. For those of you that don't know, I am from New York. I only say it every other video. Why would you know that? I am from New York, and Cash Jordan is a national treasure. He has been keeping me up to date because I'm not in New York right now. I've actually been in a secret location that I cannot disclose to any of you. But I still love New York. Still my home, even though they're fucking stupid sometimes with how they vote. It's still my home. And ironically, Donald Trump also comes from there. Human also comes from there. I just reacted to a video where he was prominent in it. And yeah, we're gonna see. Apparently gangs are taking over New York City. Thanks to Trump's win, the entire world is changing and reacting preemptively. Because the second he's in, it looks like we're hitting the ground running. All of the updated departments are already selected. What their plan is, they're already planning it out, charting it. It's literally going to be paperwork approval, and consider we control the House and the House, the Senate, everything is going to get pushed, hopefully. And yeah, let's see.
Very clear about this. Everyone deserves to walk safely down Roosevelt Avenue.
The 2-mile stretch of Roosevelt Avenue that runs through Jackson Heights is the target of a joint city and state crackdown called Operation Restore.
So a working-class neighborhood here in New York has been taken over by gangs, and residents say they don't even feel safe walking down the street. But although there's been a massive deployment of police officers here, which has led to reductions in crime over the last week, the city has already announced this police surge is temporary. And fearful residents say that once the police leave, the criminal element that's infested their backyards is going to come back.
Residents and business owners say they are fed up with the illegal dumping and trafficking that is happening in front of them every day.
Sadly, there's two sides to Roosevelt Avenue. There's Roosevelt Avenue by day, and there's Roosevelt Avenue by night.
My child and I had to walk through Roosevelt Avenue to go to an event. I had to keep him distracted.
Some of the so-called massage parlors, they run 24 hours.
And Chief of Detectives Joseph Kenny says the influx of migrants is fueling the problem.
And with that, you see some gang activity.
A new warning about a dangerous Venezuelan prison gang making deeper inroads in the U.S. The Department of Homeland Security says members of the notorious Tren de Aragua gang are increasingly drawn to sanctuary cities.
They built their entire enterprise off the backs of over 8 million Venezuelans fleeing Venezuela and other countries in South America. They're going to seize apartments. They're going to seize...
My question is, if you're from New York, how do you vote Democrat again after this shit? Like, how? You have to either not understand what's happening or not be a victim of one of these criminals yet. But I don't understand how anyone in New York could make that same fucking mistake and vote Democrat again. Granted, they voted more Republican this time than previously, but that's still not good enough. Like, too many of you are voting for the wrong fucking reasons, and it shows. Because what the actual fuck? You guys literally vote the worst out of any other, like, well, probably not out of any city, but you guys vote just as bad as most cities. Like, look at your mayor choice. Literally
abandoned buildings. They're going to take over the migrant care centers.
We know that we are in a crisis moment right now.
Yeah.
So local officials are already demanding more assistance in advance of the end of the police surge. But what nobody's talking about is that the gangs exploiting New York's asylum crisis, which is a citywide crisis, have made the problems in this one particular part of town even worse. And what we have here in Queens is a neighborhood that's always had elevated levels of crime because it's been neglected by city leadership for a long time, which has turned what was once a middle-class paradise into a lawless environment ripe for exploitation by a dangerous vending.
You know, it's bad when Queens starts becoming shit. That's like the middle working class, like, haven right there. If this was Brooklyn, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Venezuelan gang with criminal ambitions beyond anything our leaders ever thought possible. Which is a shame for both local residents of this neighborhood and asylum seekers, because although 212,000 asylum seekers have fled to New York without the intention of joining gangs or committing crimes, they and local residents are now being afflicted by the same gang that's famous for terrorizing many people throughout South and Central America. And now they're doing it again in sanctuary cities all over America where there are laws which help the lawless evade federal authorities who may be looking for them, which is especially bad once you realize this gang's specialty is human exploitation. Which brings us to the real reason why we've got criminal activity taking over middle-class neighborhoods that just won't seem to stop, even during a police surge. This activity is fueled by the influx of asylum seekers to New York City, not because the asylum seekers themselves are bad, but because as a sanctuary city with soft on crime laws, New York allows bad people to prey on them just as they've been doing outside of America for years. And as you're about to see, after we arrest these gang members, they often get released, but then they go back home, living in a shelter next to the very people they've decided to target.
Makes no sense. Soft on crime makes no sense at all.
So this long, skinny tower here, it's called the Candler Building. It's a former office. It's been converted into a shelter for asylum seekers. Single adults, holds around 400 people. And although there have been reports of gang activity in facilities like this, if you look around the streets and the immediate area, we don't see the signs of gang activity here like we do across the water in Queens. That's because here in Midtown, there's a big police presence. There are enough resources here to get a handle on crime to a greater extent than there is.
Yeah, it makes sense. Manhattan's gonna be way harder, man. Manhattan be locked down, man. There's police everywhere, and it should be. It's like one of the biggest tourist spots on the planet Earth. And it's so sad seeing New York like this. My question is to all the people who's pushing for like illegal immigration to be like accepted. What are you inviting them to the US for? For a better life? This is a better life? Being forced to stay in shelters, having no way to progress or get housing, because as a landlord, why the fuck would you ever rent to any of these people? There's no guarantee of a paycheck. They barely speak English, if they speak English at all. They have nothing typically skill-wise to offer the US. You're inviting them here to be homeless and to be victims of crimes, which they already were doing back home. Except now you've made it where they have to live with those criminals and you will do nothing about it. Like there's a 0% chance anything gets done about it. Like my question is, what is the end game here? Like what were you guys thinking? It's so stupid. It's so stupid.
In an area of the city that has been neglected for years. And residents are worried that once the police pull out after this 90-day surge ends, which is already almost half over at this point, that the criminal element that had set up shop there and had taken over is just going to come right back.
The 2-mile stretch of Roosevelt Avenue that runs through Jackson Heights is the target of a joint city and state crackdown tackling quality of life issues and crime. But on Wednesday, lawmakers unveiled a 7-point plan to improve the...
So this particular part of town, Roosevelt Avenue in Queens, when I went there to check things out for myself to see what it was actually like, I was shocked for a few reasons. First, the whole place felt like an outdoor market where you could buy just about anything because everything was being sold in some form or another on the sidewalk. Also, all the people that I saw, they all appeared to be well-meaning and nice. And although you could kind of tell that what was going on definitely wasn't by the book, you didn't feel like you were in a poverty-stricken part of town. No, it definitely felt like a middle-class neighborhood. It still retains that. And one big difference between this part of town and Midtown where we are right now is that I didn't see any unhappy...
I want you guys to understand all of those houses right there. They're probably worth like well over $1 million each. I kid you not. These are worth a lot of fucking money. You get no space. Oh man, that's New York, man. The house I grew up in worth like I think it was $1.3 million now. It's actually insane. These are worth a lot of money. All of these. And then they become worth more because a lot of people or a lot of companies be wanting to tear these down to build something else, like apartment building or something, because they make 10 times the money due to how high rent is. Crazy, man.
Part of town in Midtown where...
You guys think illegal immigrants are going to be able to live in this city? That's the craziest part to me, because anyone from New York can tell you how fucking, like... You like just outlandish you're ever gonna get out that shelter, barely speaking English, having barely any connections here, and having no like sellable skills, especially because again you don't speak the language It's just crazy.
Where we are right now is that I didn't see any unhoused individuals or anybody who was visibly using a substance on the side of the street that they shouldn't be using. But one thing's for sure, when you look in the windows of some of the nearby businesses, you see signs and photos of people who they say have stolen things from them. There's a definite theft problem at a lot of the legitimate shops there, and as it turns out, those items are being resold on the streets, in some cases in front of the very businesses that were just robbed. There have been articles written about
my bad, the Latinxes.
this. Apparently all of this stuff comes from stores, department stores, many local businesses in the area. And this is where the gang connection to some of the crime that's going on here really starts to come out, because you've got stuff that's been stolen from Macy's, that's been stolen from Home Depot, and it's kind of like all the stolen goods that get taken from anywhere in town wind up over there and are being resold by people who, according to the New York Post, in many cases recently came to this country as asylum seekers. And as you observe these outdoor markets and how they operate, you can get the sense that there are people watching out for police in case they decide to show up. You've also got vans that have merchandise inside of them with the doors open, which could conceivably be quickly closed if there were a police raid or some sort of increased police presence on the block. And some of the women that I saw selling tools that came out of suitcases on the side of the sidewalk, well, they got those suitcases from men who handed them to them. And that's where things started to click, that there are many forms of possible exploitation going on out there in
Well, I know about the crime rings from like months ago. He covered that shit too. But like, this is crazy. So they're using like the other illegal immigrants to sell their product, which some of it might be like illegal drugs and stuff like that. And they're like creating a massive network of crime, which is completely like ran by illegal immigrants. Makes sense. That's
broad
where the human
daylight,
trafficking
and it
comes
all
in
can be
too.
traced back to these gangs operating in the very shelters that are supposed to help people.
We know that we are in a crisis moment right now.
The plan calls for a number of major changes, including more inspections and enforcement by city and state agencies, better lighting under the elevated 7 line, and requiring hotels.
Why they, for the 7-point plan, they used the fucking 7, why are they using the train thing? I would walk past that thinking, oh, they're saying the 7 train is coming through here now. Like, I don't know why
So
they
residents
did that.
here, they're really worried, and they're worried because they understand that once the police surge that is here, which has already been announced as temporary, ends, the criminal element is just going to come back. And now they've got a 7-point plan to try and fix their neighborhood, which requires permanent solutions from the city. And what they want is a constant presence of city resources in their neighborhood at all times, just like here in Midtown, near many of the shelters where asylum seekers are staying. They want their neighborhood to look and feel just like this one, which isn't neglected by the city, even though it's in the exact same city. And even though we're dealing with a gang of criminals that are experts in human exploitation, they can't get away with the stuff that they do in Queens down here. Midtown is completely the opposite of the problems these residents of this middle-class neighborhood are dealing with. Yet in Queens, we see their illegal...
So all you need to do is make $1 million a year. Idiots. Just make $1 million a year. You can move to the nice area. Duh.
Illegal businesses all over the place operating in physical structures where there might be a license that says the business is legitimate when in fact it isn't. Here's photos of a recent raid. The Venezuelan gang we're talking about here is Tren de Aragua, and they'll do what they can to exploit everyone they come into contact with, which is very bad news for a city like New York that is a sanctuary city dealing with a massive humanitarian crisis. And the asylum crisis here is an opportunity for this gang that has not been lost upon them. They don't just locate victims in these shelters. They also find new members in them as well. They forcefully recruit people to do their dirty work all over town. And they tell people that if they don't join their gang as foot soldiers or workers of some kind, they will go after their families back home in Venezuela. And if there's a type of crime that can be committed in a city like New York, you can bet they're involved in it. There have been reports of robbery crews disguised as delivery riders marauding through the streets, stealing things from people on sidewalks. And when you see a woman who is on the side of the street pulling things out of a suitcase or backpack that a man handed to her, and then she starts selling them to people, you've got to wonder, is she doing that by choice? Is that what she really wants to do? Or is she forced to be in that situation? It looks terrible. But what residents of Queens want in their 7-point plan is to make sure that all of the businesses in Roosevelt Avenue are licensed, and that the streets are adequately clean, and that there is enforcement of unlicensed street vending. And those would all be good things, because allowing unlicensed street vending sets up an avenue for exploitation that this gang can use. And it's the same thing with the illegal businesses. If you're going to allow those to operate and commit crime in broad daylight, they're only going to multiply.
And requiring hotels and massage parlors to obtain licenses in order to operate.
Right now, there's no licensing for hotels. That is where criminal activity thrives, in unlicensed hotels.
Now, in order to move this plan forward, the community leaders say...
So the mere idea that you could have an unlicensed hotel on the side of the street that is not actually a hotel, but looks like one from the outside and has people coming in and out of it on the side of the street, that's extremely frightening. Especially when you read stories about how this TDA gang is directly involved with human smuggling operations that take place outside of the United States. And it reveals that by having bad people live in our shelter system, the entire purpose of that system is invalidated. Because if the goal of these facilities is to help people get on their feet and take their shot at the American dream, how exactly do they go about doing that when criminals live down the hall from their family? There's nothing humane about an operation that has wanted fugitives living down the hall from families with little kids, or even down the hall from people who are here for a better life. And none of our elected officials are making the connection between crime in underserved parts of town and the gang-related aspects of the asylum crisis and how they're co-opting it. And what that means is there's no way this police surge is going to be successful in Queens.
My whole thing about this situation is, again, like, people will continue voting for this. You're not making these people's lives better. You're forcing them to be criminals. Situations where they normally wouldn't have to be. I don't understand the end goal for New York, personally, at least the citizens who keep voting wrong. Like, I know more and more are waking up, but, like, will it take you to be a victim of one of these criminals for you to realize the threat, or will you act preemptively and protect yourself and your family? You know what I mean? Like, you never know what will happen to your family member. It could be somebody you're friends with. It could be... So, like, this may seem like a situation that's super far from home for a lot of these people. But it's not the wealthy people who need to be worried from the looks of it. Like, if you're living in Manhattan, you have some pretty good fucking money. It's the people in places like Queens, so working class, like, families are being affected. Places like Brooklyn, so, like, the lower income, also working class. Like, we already have issues with our own citizens in these places, too. Don't forget that, like, when K2 was popping off over by, like, Myrtle Avenue, you would see people just strung out all the time. I was still in New York at that time, and it was legit. You can look up videos, look up K2 New York, and you can see it. We had our own, like, really bad drug problems where police had to come and cleanse all that out. And that's without the massive influx of immigrants that we're having today. And a lot of these people are bringing illegal substances. I don't understand how you guys expect our needs as Americans to be tended to when we're stuck giving all of our resources to shit like this. There's not enough police in New York to handle all of these areas. You guys wanted to defund them. Have you forgotten? That was your whole thing. You guys wanted to defund police and then invite nothing but criminal. Well, not nothing but criminal, but you know what I'm saying. Even if they don't want to be criminals, it looks like they're being forced to be, which is the whole point. The criminals are literally multiplying. That's how crime works. That's how crime organizations work, especially when you have a bunch of vulnerable people in one spot. You're literally creating a nest for them to recruit from and then acting like you're shocked that this is happening. You guys don't want police. You guys don't want people vetted. You don't want any restrictions on immigration. So you just want a lawless, completely dog shit city for no reason. And it's not hurting the people in Wall Street. The people in those buildings are doing fine. Their stocks just shot through the fucking roof. They're out there hitting cocaine off of fucking strippers' backs and doing backflips over fucking illegal immigrants cleaning their toilets. Like, they don't give a fuck. They don't care. And it's like all of you dummies who just keep voting wrong. Keep voting wrong. Keep voting for the worst policy. Because you can't close your fucking legs for most of them. Because you can't control yourself. And this is what happened to a city I grew up in. And it's so fucking sad, man. It's so sad. And there's so many people being affected who just, they're ignored. Because the liberal media wants you to think this is some sort of like amazing thing the US is doing. No, you're fucking over your own citizens. You're screwing us over. with this. I have family in New York. The last thing I ever want to happen is to get a fucking call that one of my family members were hurt, because so help me God, I will make it my life's mission to have every single illegal immigrant deported from this country. I will shit on the liberal fucking bullshit ass left party harder than I ever have before, and it will be my life's goal to absolutely destroy that party inside out and tear it to pieces. God forbid, I say this as an atheist, right? God forbid, I hope nothing happens to any of my family in New York, but if something does, like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, you guys never know. And it's like, you guys won't do anything about it. You're allowing this to happen. And you're putting my family in danger. You're putting yourself in danger. You're putting your families and friends in danger too. What if one of my friends get hurt because of a fucking Venezuelan gang that has no business being here? Because you wanted to virtue signal and feel like you're a good person. Despite the fact it's not your tax dollars, because most of y'all voted for this shit don't have jobs. Your fucking college kids, your parents are taking the brunt of the bill. Most of you are fucking dumb. You don't know anything about the real world. You don't think abstractly. You never think about the future. It's just, do I feel good in this moment? And that's the fucking problem. Think about the future. Think about the fact your family lives there, or maybe a fucking distant relative, or maybe a friend, or maybe you go visit one day, or your family goes to visit one day, and they get hurt. And it's on you for the way you voted. That's simple. Sad situation.
So, the longer the asylum crisis here in New York continues, the more we learn that the two things many people say are responsible for this crisis, New York's generous right to shelter laws and its sanctuary city status, the more we realize that those two things may in fact be in complete conflict with each other. Because the idea of helping people who've fled extreme poverty is incompatible with the idea of housing people who may have a dangerous criminal past they're hiding, especially when that criminal past involves exploiting some of the very same people that have now come here to New York. And let's say you're living in one of the city's shelters and you know that there are gang members there. Well, since the police are banned from even going into those shelters, how are you supposed to get help? And how are the police going to get rid of the gang?
Why the fuck would you ban police from going into shelters with a bunch of illegal immigrants? Exactly. How are they supposed to get help? Like, just dumb. Just dumb. You're creating laws to help illegal immigrants commit crimes. Like, this is crazy. This is fucking Looney Tunes land. Like, this is loony. Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, I'm not the smartest person on earth. And I can recognize how fucking stupid this idea is. Like, you don't need a lot of intelligence to, like, really put together why this would be a bad idea. Okay, we're going to bring in illegal immigrants. We are going to not check who they are. We are going to make it against the law for police to go into their shelters. What could go wrong? And we know some of them are gang members. Like, we know for a fact. And we're going to just not do anything.
Gangs, like, they're not, because we're a sanctuary city, and that is a big problem.
You yourself have stated that if there is a Venezuelan migrant community in a neighborhood, then there's likely the Tren de Aragua gang. Why?
They built their entire enterprise off the backs of over 8 million Venezuelans fleeing Venezuela and other countries in South America.
And once the Tren de Aragua establishes...
So the most amazing thing about this asylum crisis is that here you have this gang, and the thing that they're looking for is a mass of vulnerable people who they can exploit. Well, that's what the asylum crisis is. And they've got access to those people once the city decides to allow them to live in our shelters because we don't do background checks. But it gets even worse because the city allows unlicensed vending to run rampant on many of our streets. This gang is taking advantage of our non-enforcement of our existing laws to co-opt people into working for them who have no choice. And
I mean, yeah, like, logically speaking, right? Let's say they make stealing legal. I'm taking some shit. Like, what?
Can't escape from them. Remember, they thought that they were getting on buses like this to come to New York and check into a shelter where they would be able to escape.
So you're telling me I can have a free $5,000 item? Oh, okay. Shit. Take it. Like, what? If you're having no punishment, why would people not break the law if there is none, really? It's just decorative at
this
that
gang,
point.
but no, the gang is here waiting for them, and they're using our system of lawlessness against these people. And it's not like this is some secret. Recently, a gang was discovered living in the Roosevelt Hotel, which is the welcome center for all new asylum seekers. If you come to New York and you're seeking asylum, from the moment you get off your bus or your train or your Uber or however you got here, you've got to go to the Roosevelt Hotel to get a shelter placement. And there are gang members there looking at people, sizing them up when they enter the system for the very first time. And what I can't seem to figure out is we've got so many people in New York that want to do everything they can to help the asylum seekers, but they want to try and do it while remaining a sanctuary city, and they fail to see the connection between gangs coming here and ruining the whole thing. That's what they're missing. And then you've got to add to that the fact that there are also people here who are in charge that believe that law enforcement of any kind is incompatible with people coming to America and trying to start a new life. What does that mean? How are those people supposed to stay safe from the gangs they've fled if police are the enemy? How's that going to work?
And once the Tren de Aragua establishes a cell within a community, what's their end game? What happens next?
Their end game really is to govern and control that area. So they're going to seize areas, they're going to seize apartments, they're going to seize abandoned buildings, they're going to take over the migrant care centers.
You know, the worst thing about this is that this isn't some new discovery that we've made. We've known all along that this is how this gang operates. And even though they might not be taking over as many apartments, just a handful of apartments like they are in other parts of the country, like in Colorado and in Texas, here they're co-opting many of the people that have come here looking for help and a fresh start. So they're co-opting people. And that's what they're all about. And that's why even though this 7-point neighborhood plan for Queens, even though it's a great idea, it might not do much in the long run if the root cause of the problems that are being experienced there have more to do with a system that the city itself is facilitating. From not controlling and stopping the resale of stolen goods, to allowing criminals to get a free place to stay, which is their right even after they get arrested and spend time in the back of a police car. How else are these gang members getting arrested hundreds of times and they're still here if our laws aren't protecting them? And this gang of teenage criminals that live in the Welcome Center, Roosevelt Hotel, they're all still here. The 20 of them have been arrested over 50 times when combined, revealing that not only is it a bad idea for our sanctuary city to allow gang members a place to stay right next to families with little kids, but this whole idea that police are somehow a problem for people that are immigrating to America, that's ridiculous, because now you've got the law-abiding living in these shelters where they think they're supposed to get help, but inside those very same shelters, you've got gang members controlling the entire environment. They're smuggling weapons inside these places, inside their backpacks, inside DoorDash deliveries.
So to summarize, we have completely opened the country to criminals, and we have made it known that we will do nothing to stop them. Literally nothing. We are doing the bare minimum to handle any sort of situation. We are going to talk so poorly about police and take as much power away from them as possible, but then complain when police can't do anything about it. The fuck are they supposed to do? The government you guys keep voting for the government you guys keep voting for has decided that they are going to be very soft on crime. They are going to allow these illegal immigrants to do whatever the fuck they want with no repercussions. And if you're police, what the fuck do you do? Literally, what do you do? There's no solution anymore using police.
What look like DoorDash deliveries? And the only law and order in a place like that is going to go to the strongmen that have taken it over. And the sad thing is, it only takes a handful of people to do this. It's not like we have millions of gang members living here. No, it's a small minority of people, but they're having a massive impact. And we've still got over 60,000 people living in our shelters who really could use help and would very much benefit from being able to rely on law enforcement to protect them, but they can't do that. What do you think about that? Is that why certain neighborhoods in town are being taken over by gang members who are exploiting people who they came here with, who are looking for a better life? Is that because the police aren't allowed anywhere near this? Is it because our laws are not allowed to stop it? Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching.
So you have stuff that is morally reprehensible, right? But there's no laws against it. You have to ask like reasons like, why wouldn't someone do it? Like if you're from a Venezuelan gang and you come to the US and they're not stopping crime that you commit at all, why would you not do it? Like logically speaking, why would you not? Like there's no reason for you to change. It's not like you have any threat to your livelihood. Shout out to Cash Jordan. Homie is a GOAT. I haven't followed him on this account. I follow him on my like personal account. But subscribe now. Make sure you check out his video, and I'll catch you guys next time. Let me know what you guys think New York should do. I think, personally, they should take, what you call it? They should take their laws right now, shove them up the governor's ass, and make actual laws that have to be followed. I think that's a good idea. How about we stop being soft on crime and we start punishing criminals? That's a good start. Donald Trump will handle the rest by deporting all of them. So, and Sir Human, I don't know how to say his name, man. But you guys know who I'm talking about. Anyway, peace, guys.